Okay, let's put it all together and get a nice little mobility routine here for you. First thing we're going to do is check in with our feet. Take a nice breath. Just stand and relax wherever that position might be for you. Don't worry about where your feet are right now. Just let your muscles relax, let your body settle in. It's okay if you feel a little sway. Let things settle. As you find your center, do you feel more pressure on one foot or the other? No judgment, just make note of that. How about on the toes or on the heels? On the inside of your feet and the medial arch, or the outside of your feet, the lateral arch? Or is it even on either side? And is it different from your right side to your left side? I like to also check in, how does your pelvis feel? I feel like my pelvis is slightly twisted to the right and my shoulders are slightly twisted to the left. No judgment, that's just where I'm starting. So now we're going to come down onto the floor. If you have your ball with you or an ottoman, you can do your breathing that way. I'm going to start just in hook lying, and I'm just going to check in with my breath here. Can you feel your stomach rise and fall? Do you feel that inner tube expand? Do you feel like you're taking more breath into your chest, or is your chest moving more than the diaphragm? One more breath. Let everything go. We're going to start with our sagittal plane cogs by tipping our pelvis anterior. The two ASIS in the front are going to move towards your feet. As you do that, your rib cage will go into a posterior tilt and your skull will go into an anterior tilt, creating a nice extension through the lower back. You can increase this slightly by turning the palms open and the thumbs back towards the floor. And we're going to posterior tilt the pelvis, anterior tilt the rib cage, posterior tilt the head automatically posterior tilts, and we'll allow those shoulder blades to come apart, creating a nice flexion through the whole spine. Again, go into an anterior tilt of the pelvis, posterior tilt of the rib cage, anterior tilt of the skull, nice lengthening through the entire spine. And we're rolling the shoulder blades together, which creates a little more extension through the upper back. Posterior tilt the pelvis, anterior tilt the ribs, and posterior tilt the skull. Just allowing your head to move with your body without forcing any motion. And we'll come back to center. As you're ready, we're going to roll over onto your hands and knees. Knees are directly under your hips. Hands are directly under your shoulders. We're looking straight down, going into an anterior tilt of the pelvis, posterior tilt of the rib cage, nice extension through the spine. Your neck automatically goes into an anterior tilt, so there's nice length through the spine. I'm going to posterior tilt the pelvis, anterior tilt the rib cage, feel your abdominals shorten, and your head will posterior tilt. Give the ground a little push away from you. Anterior tilt the pelvis. Rib cage will posterior tilt, getting some extension through the upper back. An extension through your neck into that chin tuck slight position. Posterior tilt the pelvis. Anterior tilt the rib cage. Allow your head to just flow with the rest of your spine. Start the extension with your rib cage this time. So your rib cage will posterior tilt. Now your pelvis will anterior tilt. Maybe not as much. And the ribs will anterior tilt. Pelvis will posterior tilt. One more of those. Posterior tilt of the rib cage, then anterior tilt of the pelvis. The head goes along naturally. Anterior tilt the rib cage, posterior tilt the pelvis. We'll come up onto knees. We'll come up into standing. If you choose, go against the wall for these. Catch your breath. And we're going to go into an anterior tilt of the pelvis, posterior tilt of the rib cage so that you get the length between the xiphoid process and your pubic symphysis. Eyes are on the horizon and your chin is slightly tucked. Back of your neck is long. Posterior tilt the pelvis. Anterior tilt the rib cage. And you'll feel a posterior tilt of your skull. Anterior tilt the pelvis. Posterior tilt the ribs. Extend the spine. We're going to rotate our palms back to get a little bit more extension. Posterior tilt the pelvis. Anterior tilt the ribs. Allow the head to just flow with it. And we'll roll the shoulders in, which will create more flexion through the upper back. Anterior tilt. Posterior tilt the ribs. Externally rotate or turn the palms out. And roll in. Take a nice breath. We're going to go into our frontal plane cogs, starting with a hip hike and drop. First, we're going to bend the right knee. So our right hip will drop. We'll reach the right arm up towards the ceiling, the left hand towards the floor. You want a nice length through the top of the neck, shortening in through the left side, lengthening through the right side. Keep your eyes on the horizon. Bend the left knee, hike the right hip, the left hip will drop. Reach the left hand towards the ceiling, the right hand towards the floor. I feel a nice stretch, length through that left side. One more time on the bending the right knee, reach the right arm up towards the ceiling, create length through the left. We're not tipping over, we're just allowing that flexion to happen naturally, creating a stretch also through the upper trap, which gives us in essence, our head is tipping to the side in doing this, but we're keeping our eyes straight ahead, so it just creates that movement. Last time on the bending the left knee, reach the left hand up towards the ceiling, right hand towards the floor. Nice deep breath in. And we'll return to center. Deep breath. Now we're going to shift the pelvis. So we're moving the pelvis first. It's shifting to the left as our trunk leans to the right. We're going to reach that left hand up to get a little extra length and the right hand towards the floor. Come back to center. Shift the pelvis, making sure we don't twist. Reach the right hand. Again, we're not reaching over, but we're reaching up to create length and then reaching down. To the left, Reach left hand towards the ceiling, right hand towards the floor. And to the right. Can you feel your feet move and shift as you go side to side? Nice breath. And we're going to get into our rotations. So we're going to start by just twisting the pelvis to the right, keeping our ribs still. Just get that motion down to the right. Come back to center. And then to the left. Now keep the pelvis still. Keep your eyes on the horizon. Rotate the rib cage to the right. Back to center. And to the left. We're going to put it all together. Twist from the ground up. Hands on sternum, or they can be by your side. You're going to twist your pelvis to the left and the rib cage to the right. The eyes are staying straight forward, which creates a rotation of the head to the left. So you might feel a nice stretch. Come back to center. Twist the pelvis to the right. You'll feel your right knee extend. Twist the rib cage to the left, which in essence turns the head to the right. One more time to the left for the pelvis. The ribs are going to go to the right. Pelvis goes to the right, ribs go to the left. Head stays straight forward, which creates a rotation in itself. Nice deep breath. Come back to your feet, check back in. Do you feel equal weight between either foot? Are you a little bit more centered now? Or is it the same? You could check after each segment and each plane of motion and see if you feel a difference, and spend a little more time on the one that helps create the bigger difference for you. After I run through this routine, I feel more centered between my feet so that my center mass is right between my feet and falls kind of directly underneath here. Generally, I tend to have more pressure on my left foot and tend to have more on the inside portion of my right foot and more weight in through my toes. So I like these because it really kind of pulls that weight to be balanced between the 3 points of contact on my feet, gets my center mass more centered, and keeps everything balanced. Those are your cogs. Work on them every day. Try that consistently for, if you can try and do that for the full year and see where your body ends up. Note the changes. You're going to fluctuate depending on what you do through the day. Own your breath with it. When in doubt, go back to the breathing exercises just to let everything settle down after you've created. The beauty of these is we're creating some active mobility. So while you're getting some stretch, you're moving your bones, you're actually also creating some stability through your muscles and the joints. And so, but if you're finding that you're holding your breath more, go back and do a little bit of breathing work, and play with that a little bit more. If your ankles feel like they're not getting enough movement, do some ankle mobility first, then come up and do some of the standing cogs, and see if you create a change that way. Enjoy it. I'd love to know your feedback. Please reach out, let me know. Leave me a comment below, and let's see how they're going. All right? Do them every day. Have a good one.